What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. We've looked at various replacement aspects regarding the starters of each region, which makes sense because they're some of the most iconic creatures we come across in our journeys. But there is another class of favorite Pokémon, that being the Boxart icons. The Pokémon that grace the front of the case of each different game is a portal into the window of what this new experience might encapsulate. And sometimes they're so important that they almost single-handedly determine which version some people might pick. So for being that important and influential, could we even find believable replacements for the Boxart Pokémon? Let's find out. Obviously first we met the Kanto region with red and blue versions, or red and green in Japan. And of course these are all of the starter Pokémon of the region, making them a great choice for marketing, and to let trainers know what to expect from their time playing. That being said, if we were to just simply go from game time exposure, we'd probably end up with Zubat and Magikarp on the box. So as cool as it would be to see other strong common Pokémon like Nidoking and Gyarados on the cover, we have to take into account their narrative significance as well. This leads me to believe that the legendaries are prime candidates since they appear for pretty much every other generation out there. Kanto has a reasonable amount, so I would say if we wanted to simply keep red and blue versions, we could just substitute in Articuno and Moltres. However, to sell the games at first, I would suggest we need Pokemon Yellow with Zapdos on it, since I feel that certain kids would be more drawn to this electrifying Thunderbird, just like how they switched to Blastoise in the West because water cannons were better than the lettuce frog. So I'm tempted to use Moltres in place of the actual yellow version with Pokemon Red version so that we could have all of the legendary birds. But I also think that Mewtwo would have been a great souped-up third version Boxart Pokemon. Maybe even diving deeper into the story, sort of tying into the movie like how Yellow tied in with the anime. If Mewtwo were the focus, I would recommend Pokémon Violet as the name, and if we wanted to have these potential alternate reality versions to be a little more different than the ones that we currently have and stray away from just the primary colors. The Johto region actually gave us some legendary birds for Gold and Silver. Now we could try some starters for this, but I don't think that's for the best, so looking at the other legendaries, we can have Raikou and Entei. These two majestic beasts are powerful incarnations of their elements, and fan favorites to boot, so I think that if we wanted to maybe keep Pokemon Gold and pair that with Pokemon Crimson, these two could anchor their own versions. And you know, they kind of deserve it since their other partner got such a big break with Crystal version all by itself. But speaking of, as a replacement, there's really only one legend left with the mythical Celebi. Some people might object to a mythical being on the box, but there was an event available to capture Celebi already in Crystal, so I don't think it's a huge leap for it to come front and center. And maybe give us some more time-traveling shenanigans within Pokemon Jade version. Do you think the Johto region would have been as popular if these were the options? Next is Hohen, and there are already excess options from which to choose. I don't think the Regis would quite make the cut, but we do have a promising pair of Pokemon in Latios and Latias. And if we wanted, we could still have them be for Ruby and Sapphire, because they do maintain their coloring. Or perhaps even switch them if we wanted to emphasize their highlights instead. The Emerald replacement, however, is trickier. I don't believe Jirachi could carry the weight on its own, so my vote is Deoxys. This strange space creature could easily have enough lore wrapped around it to make an excellent game, as we saw just a glimpse of with the Delta episode, which is also where we were able to catch it. In case anyone was upset by the idea, it has already been in-game before. And I would actually call this one Pokemon Crystal, giving a heightened focus to the central jewel in its chest that essentially constitutes the heart of this alien being. For Sinnoh, we have an even bigger field, but I think a pretty obvious pairing would be for the Sinnoh covers to feature Cresselia and Darkrai. These two Pokemon already share a special relationship regarding the sleeping world, so I think promoting them to be the mascots for Pokemon Opal and Pokemon Obsidian would be a rather seamless transition. We could even introduce the Dream World a couple of years early. Although I do feel kind of bad since I feel like Opal wouldn't sell as well as Obsidian, but maybe people will go for Cresselia's design. As for the third version, I think we've all been waiting for a long time for Arceus to finally get the limelight it was supposed to. So slap that llama god on a box and call it Pokemon Prism. think Prism accurately portrays the versatility of Arceus in being able to change into any type. And just having an actual story based around this hugely powerful legend would be exciting to many fans, since it is irrevocably connected to the Sinnoh region, more almost than any other Pokemon out there with the possible exception of Bidoof. And we could also have some pretty cool interactions, probably in the post-game, with the legends that we currently know to be the Sinnoh mascots, and further explore the relationships between them. So, personally, I really like how these Sinnoh ones turned out. Which one would you pick? The Unova games of Black and White gave us the standard Dragon face-off for mascots, so we would need another close relationship to fill in for them. We could use the Forces of Nature since they are already established, but no offense to them, I don't think as many kids would be interested just from a design standpoint. So assuming that we don't just want random mythicals, I would say the best bet would be to have the Swords of Justice starting with Cobalion and Terrakion. They are the first two anyway, and they can be the mascots for Pokemon Cobalt and Pokemon Granite. For some reason, I feel like these titles might shift more towards exploration of the massive region, but perhaps that's just because I'm imagining a feature where you get to ride around on the majestic fighting type of your choice. As for the third version, you would obviously lean towards Virizion to fill the gap, but I'm tempted to instead use Keldeo, since it is also involved, but slightly more special, which would be great for a third game. Although, we could just do what the Unova region did in the first place and have 2 games instead of 1, and use them both. That way, Pokemon Verdant and Pokemon Azure could complete the set of all of the Musketeers on the box. Now, the Kalos games gave us Xerneas and Yveltal as the mascots for X and Y, which makes it a bit harder because those are more abstract titles. But the legendary Pokemon aspect remains, so clearly Zygarde would be one of the options, since we've all been expecting a Pokemon Z for a while now, even though I wouldn't call it that. As a counterpart, I would include Volcanion, since it has the power to rival Zygarde, as well as a distinct lack of any type of story in any game to date, so it's long overdue in my opinion. These 2 behemoths would be the covers of Pokemon Sigma and Pokemon Omega respectively, just to follow in the footsteps of the lettering titles. We could use 100% Zygarde, but I feel like that would be kind of cheating since Volcanion can't do anything similar to that. Now for the third Kalos version that never actually came in reality, if there was one, I would promote Diancie to the front of the box and call it Pokemon Quartz. I'm sure that Sundial would be a lot more important in this version of the game, and we could still get our Mega Diancie to show up as well. Next up with Sun and Moon, it's a bit more complicated. See, most of the legendary style Pokemon in the decks come from the Ultra Beasts, and I'm not sure that's what you would want to try and sell people on at a first glance. So you've got the Tapus, which could be poster children for sure, but we can't really use all of them. So I'd say Tapu Koko would definitely be the ideal choice as the most prominent member. But I think he could be the only one, and have the opposite version be represented by Magearna. This clearly provides a striking dichotomy between the overwhelming nature shown throughout the region, and how it could react to the modernization of the future through technology. Sort of like the themes of the traditions of the Island Trial Challenge versus the Aether Foundation or the Ultra Recon Squad that are already present in these games. That's why I would make these the mascots for Pokemon Spirit and Pokemon Legacy. We could go with Past and Future, but I feel like that one should probably have some time travel mechanics with it anyway. As for the third version, now I would say is the time to crack open the Ultra Beasts, most specifically with Naganadel, since it is probably more relatable than some of the others, and has the advantage of a cute first stage that could potentially take the place of Nebby in the story of Alola that we already know. And then you could use Naganadel as your mount to take down the rest of these crazy space monsters. So I think this sleek, poisonous dragon could be the mascot for the third game. We could just call it Pokemon Ultra. Or if we wanted to go more artsy, something like Pokemon Razor or some other edgy sounding thing. But I feel like the single Ultra version would have suited them better than separating them into 2 versions that we did get, with minimal differences to each other, as well as the original Sun and Moon. So these alternates for Alola might have been a more accurate representation for the ideas that the games were trying to convey. Honestly, Generation 8 was the one that I was most nervous about when I came up with this idea, since the legends in the game were few and far between. But even then, who am I supposed to pick? Urshifu and Calyrex? they pretty much already have their own box art sections with the 2 DLC title icons. The legendary bird shouldn't be here again, and I'm definitely not going to pick Zarude. Who's left? Regidrago and Regieleki? I'm not sure that would work either, but luckily, the Crown Tundra added 2 perfect candidates that we didn't even know about. I guess spoilers if you haven't played the Crown Tundra, but at this point you probably either care or you don't. But I think promoting Glastrier and Spectrier to box art Pokemon would be our best bet. Choosing between these 2 ethereal equines was quite the shock, as was their ability to merge with Calyrex. But I think these 2 secret legends could indeed bear the burden of carrying their own versions. And Shadow Rider Calyrex makes me want to call it Pokemon Shadow, but Ice Rider makes it not as cool. But I will enthusiastically recommend that they be the mascots for Pokemon Dawn and Pokemon Dusk, which I think perfectly fits the sinister horse of the dead roaming the night, as well as the bright, glistening frozen steed ushering in the daybreak. Now, in lieu of the DLC we actually got, assuming there was a 3rd version, I would say Eternatus would be a good choice. In reality, with those 2, it would probably be Calyrex, since that's what we've seen with the actual versions, but again, just for the sake of totally replacing all mascots, Eternatus never really got a fair shake. It was barely focused on in the games at all, just a mere plot device rather than an actual threat. So Pokemon Eternity version could help realize Eternatus as a full-blown legend instead of just continually forgetting that he's even there. Or if we had to stick with the 2 DLC sections, I suppose the Galarian legendary birds might be able to fill in that spot. And I guess if you wanted to, over the years, you could have remakes of said titles like Pokemon Frost Blue and Thunder Yellow, Pokemon Golden Storm and Crimson Flare, or even Timeless Ruby and Infinite Sapphire. However, for the initial main series run, I believe these to be the best and possibly only box art replacement Pokemon that could make it work. But I could be wrong, so what Pokemon do you think could fill in on the game covers? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!